Good morning, everyone. We'll wait in just 1 minute, everybody to be in the main room. So welcome to today's event, Collaborative FAIR Data Practices and Tools, organized under the umbrella of the FAIR Impact Project. My name is Dragoș Barbu. I'm the head of cloud computing at ICI Bucharest, which is the National Research Institute in Informatics. We are also the mandated organization in the UEFISCDI Association, and I'm the substitute delegate to UEFISCDI Association. I'm honored to be your moderator for this gathering, and we'll explore the role of FAIR principle in advancing research data management and collaboration. Primary focus of this event will be FAIR data practice and tools, and how they are shaping the future of scientific research. In Romania, the research and academic community is increasingly recognizing the value of adhering to the FAIR principles. And through the FAIR Impact Project, it's helping institutions, researchers, and data professionals to implement these practices through practical tools and frameworks. So today we are joined by experts who will share their insights, experience, and strategies for adopting and implementing the FAIR data practices. Just a short housekeeping rules for our event. As you can see, the workshop will be recorded. And if you have any questions, please write them in the chat and raise your hand during the question period. And during the presentation, please switch off your microphone. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Vasu Calaiți. She's a research data management specialist at DANS, where she is also an active member of data expert and project acquisition teams. So, Vasu, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Just give me a second to share my screen. I will switch off my video so that my connection is stable while the presentation, and I will give you a brief overview of the project. Just a second. I think that now you can see the presentation. I'm not sure if you see it on a presentation mode. Okay,
yes,
great.
perfect.
Perfect, thank you. So here you can see today's focus. So this is our program for the day. As you see, I have a 10-minute window to give you a very brief overview of our project and what we are working on and what we are aiming to achieve. FAIR Impact is a 3-year European-funded project contributing to the implementation of the European Open Science Cloud, aiming to expand FAIR solutions in Europe. We have a consortium of 28 partners and affiliated entities from around Europe, and in this slide you can see our partners. Our project supports the implementation of FAIR enabling solutions across scientific communities at European, national, and institutional level for a wide spectrum of stakeholders. It does so with the help of several coordination and support mechanisms. In this slide, you can see the structure of our project. The structure of our project is aligned with certain activity areas that contribute directly to the strategic research and innovation agenda of the European Open Science Cloud. This you can see in this slide under work packages 3 to 6 on persistent identifiers, metadata and ontologies, metrics, and interoperability that also represent our pillar work packages. These are supported by activities on engagement, dissemination and exploitation, coordination, and sustainability. Partners from 4 different scientific domains participate in our project. We call those our integrated use case partners, as they provide expertise, solutions, and best practices that apply to their specific domain in our 4-pillar work packages and support programs. The goal of this is to share and expand their solutions and best practices from their own domain to other domains. In this slide, you can see a little bit how their participation is under persistent identifiers, semantic artifacts, metrics, and interoperability at legal, organizational, and across the European Open Science Cloud level. The use case partners are those in the circle. And on the side on your right, you can see a couple of examples of how these use case partners contribute. For example, we have the Fuji tool that has been built during the FAIR project in a domain agnostic way. And it has been adopted for the social science and humanities and further on to other domains. If you visit our website on the link that you see on the bottom, you can see specific examples of work of our use case partners. At the same time, our project aims to provide the venue for alignment across its main topics with the EOSC and FAIR ecosystem. Every year, a synchronization force workshop is organized in order to provide this venue for interactive sessions for a wide range of relevant actors. This year's workshop is ongoing, with a closing session taking place on November 7th. The reports from the 2 previous editions are available on our website, and the final report and a white paper will be available in early 2025. Our project activities are supported by our FAIR implementation catalog, providing resources that come from the project, but also from communities external to the project on the core topics you see on the slide. If you visit our FAIR implementation catalog, you can find resources as guidelines and methodologies and practice documents, practices and guidance on metadata and ontologies, software and tools, as well as training materials. But where do we start? Where do we stand now? As I said, our project has a 3-year duration. At this moment, we are on the final year of our project, with our end date being May 2025. We have provided a certain number of outputs, that is deliverables, milestones, but also use cases, event materials, responses to other communities and actors like the European Open Science Cloud Task Forces, which you can find in our updated website view. You can also visit our website to read our policy brief that explains how we interact with other EU-funded projects and other actors in the EOSC and FAIR landscape, and how through this interaction and our activities we contribute to the implementation of EOSC. We do put more focus on sustainability of our outputs, activities, and legacy for the future at the moment, and we are active in relevant events and activities. You will hear more about that in presentations following mine, but also you can visit our website to see where our presence is and how you can collaborate with us and profit from our activities by participating in them. At the same time, we continue to provide support to external stakeholders through in-kind support and guidance, a cascading grant mechanism, and open FAIR implementation workshops. For the 2 first, the direct support and guidance and the cascading grants, we use open, transparent calls, while the FAIR implementation workshops are public and openly available. Our final call for funding is at the moment open and will remain open until December 4th, offering 4 different types of support. You can apply to receive funding in order to implement one or more of these 4 FAIR enabling solutions that we offer for the benefit of your own organization, but also of the research community. When you visit our website, you can see on the top that there is a tab on open calls, and there you can see which calls are at the moment available, which solutions we offer, and guidelines on the process. Finally, this is our Zenodo community. Please do not hesitate to visit both our website, but also our Zenodo community, where all of our outputs, publications, and materials are available. Thank you very much for the time that you gave me to provide this brief overview. And please let us know if you have any questions immediately or after this event. We will be happy to connect with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vaso. We'll have a dedicated Q&A session in the program. But now I would like to introduce our next speaker. It's Alina Irimia, who is leading various projects within the Open Science Knowledge Hub at Executive Agency UEFISCDI. Now, Alina, please.
Hello, and thank you very much, Dragos, for the introduction. Just to confirm that my screen is shared and you can see it.
Yeah, it's not in presenting mode, but
okay, now. Okay. All right, thank you. As Dragos said, I'm Alina Irimia. I'm currently coordinating the Open Science project at the main funder of competitive research in Romania, UEFISCDI. I'm gonna talk today a bit about the open science and FAIR context and support that exists at national level. And I'm gonna touch upon the open science strategy framework. I'm gonna talk about how we try to implement. We're in the first phases of implementing this strategic framework. And a bit about how we try to develop an open science community to reinforce the dialogue with the community in this transition towards open science. Most of you are familiar with the strategic framework, which was launched in 2022. This National Strategic Framework for Open Science is composed of recommendations, which are included in the National Strategy for RDI and Smart Specialization for the time 2022-2027. The white paper of the transition to open science, which was launched at the end of 2022, this describes the vision for the transition and actions to be implemented in the time horizon of 2023-2030, and also recommendations are included in the National Plan for Research, Development and Innovation, which is the main instrument to implement the national strategy for RDI. In highlight here, I will show the main recommendations, the core recommendations of the national strategy, which are comprised in the objective 1.2, called ensuring the transition to open science and facilitating the road towards excellence in scientific research. The core strategic actions are mandating open access to scientific publications resulting from publicly funded research. DMPs should be made mandatory in the publicly funded research. RDM cost should be eligible costs in the publicly funded projects. Data to be fair first and as open as possible, as close as necessary. You will see that I will repeat this European principle through my presentation today. It's very important to highlight that the first steps in implementing the strategy, and the strategy itself talks about making data fair and as open as it is possible. It's very important to highlight that the need to define what's between as open as possible, as close as necessary. Also, the national strategy has recommendations on developing infrastructures and services to be onboarded in the EOSC environment, and also recommendation to start rethinking the research assessment system in order to really embrace this and support the transition in this time horizon of until 2030. Also, the strategy promotes the idea of including citizens in the research, in different stages of research, the so-called citizen science. On this legislative part, I will also mention that at the national level, we have the law on open data and the reuse of information from the public sector, which basically transposes the EU directive on open data and the reuse of public sector information. And the Article 13 reminds about the importance for the research data to be compatible with the FAIR principles. As mentioned in the strategic framework, recommendations are also included in the national plan for RDI for the time horizon 2022. 2027, and this instrument proposes different types of support and projects to be funded in this time horizon, focused on developing the institutional capacity to implement open science, to develop skills needed for the implementation and the transition towards open science. ABC's article processing charges and research data management costs are considered eligible costs in all projects publicly funded. Also, recommendations are around supporting the participation of Romania in IOSC and the relevant infrastructures and services that are in development at European level and globally, and grants to support the implementation of various open science practices with a focus on open access and fair data. Other type of support. Institutions can benefit from the Institutional Development Fund. In this fund, part of the endeavors with developing the strategic framework for open science, we've made recommendations also for funding to be included in this instrument to support universities for developing institutional capacity for the implementation of open science practices. Universities should know that they have this possibility to develop a project, to require funds in order to support, to develop their institutional capacity for open science in terms of developing, which could be in this form of developing of an institutional policy for open science or open data, or developing trainings for FAIR data, for example, which I know some institutions have taught and have developed activities of this kind, benefiting from this fund. Again, reminding the white book of the transition to open science, which is the core of this strategic framework. The white book talks of this vision that by 2030, the research culture should undergo a transformative process towards openness, reusability, and replicability of research results. And research data management is in highlight here, is a mean to achieve this vision. If we adhere to FAIR principles as a standard for publicly funded research, and to make open data as open as possible, as closed as necessary. In this white paper, a specific objective is dedicated to rethinking the management of research data, doing research data management aligned with FAIR principles, and respecting the open as possible, as closed as necessary principle. And I zoom in a bit in this specific objectives, just to show you a glimpse of what the actions are about, how they have been defined in the strategic objectives. So it is crucial to have mandatory requirements to develop data management plans and to continue updating these plans to be compliant with FAIR principles. In this data management plans, open access to data should be defined, and for the cases where open data cannot be ensured, it is important also to explicitly state in this plan why not. I think we can all agree that not all data should be open, but these particular cases should be clearly defined in the data management plans. Metadata should also be stored according to the FAIR principles, having a license, an open license, and having persistent identifier attached to them. You can find all the details, other actions defined in this white paper. In the Romanian version, there's a lot more details for the Romanian community, and a lot of references on tools and how they can be used in order to make research data management compliant with FAIR data. Now a bit of where we are now, and we are in the first phases of implementing what the strategic framework says. And I'm going to talk to you now a bit about some projects and the activities within some projects that we are carrying related to supporting FAIR data. And I'll start by naming the Opus project, which helps. The main aim of the Opus project is to help reform the assessment of research towards a system that incentivizes researchers to practice open science. You will find details about the Opus projects on the links I put here. I will not go into further details on the project. I will just say that UEFISCDI is a partner in the Opus project and contributed to this research assessment framework that the project has developed. And we're piloting activities in order to support FAIR data and research data management. The Opus framework is comprised of is designed to be a framework which covers the full spectrum of researchers' activities and offer the possibility of assessment on a broader range of activities. It remains the prerogative of each institution to determine how exactly to reward researchers for open science. So this is, in a way, our role as a pilot in the Opus project. We pilot in the support for implementing FAIR and open science requirements at national level in a funding instrument, and a specific funding instrument which was launched at the start of this year. The Centers of Excellence funding program, which is embedded in the National Research Development and Innovation funding program. Sorry, and as part of this Opus aim to pilot new indicators and metrics for research assessment. In this process of piloting at the institutional level, we selected introducing FAIR data requirements in this funding instrument, and these requirements look like this. They have been included as part of the implementation section in the funding application. This is an extract of how they are described in the funding application. So applicants were required to describe how open science practices will be implemented in the proposed projects, and also describe the practices for research data management used in the project aligned with the FAIR principle. Participants in the funding call have been informed through these requirements that if the proposal will be funded, a plan for data management, a DMP, will be required to the consortium within the first 6 months of implementation. Also, these requirements have been translated in forms of criteria of evaluation, and this criteria is under the criterion implementation of the projects, and you will see highlighted here that again we have this criteria related to open science practices and research data management. When thinking about how we implement these requirements in a funding instrument, we started planning on how this will impact our institution processes, and what does this mean for researchers and for the staff at our institution. This is a glimpse of a snapshot of our planning, and where we mapped the support that we will need to provide internally and externally, internally to the staff in our institution, raising awareness, and also ensuring trainings, resources to the staff, and also at the same time offering the support to the researchers who will participate in this funding program and will be required to elaborate, to create, to develop this data management plan. So I'm showing this internal planning that we have made only for you to see that there's a lot of workflows that we need to look into and develop. We need to develop resources, guides, and we need to map the tools available, and hopefully we've been in this FAIR Impact project, and we're also we have support in this tools part now from the catalog, and this helps our internal mapping and reaching the guides that we will translate for the researchers in Romania to support their work in creating the data management plans. I will not go further into further details about our work in Opus, because we will have an event in November 14 this year, a national event organized by us together with Opus Science Europe, COARA, and the UNESCO Chair on Science and Innovation Policies from Romania. We organize these national discussions with international presence. We will have distinguished international speakers from COARA, from Science Europe, from the European Commission, talking about rethinking research assessment. And there will be present, giving this insight on how the pilots on introducing new requirements and new criteria for assessment are going in the Opus project. Also, future steps in this endeavor, we will develop 30 MPs guides in Romanian for the Romanian researchers at the beginning of 2025. This and the DMP template along with the guides will be launched in public consultation and hands-on discussions with researchers. We plan that for March 2025. We will organize training sessions with researchers in spring 2025. We will have hands-on workshops with staff, with our internal staff, for training and for raising awareness, to offer them support on understanding how to read what's and how to monitor and do the reporting process on the DMP related issues. And we will have awareness raising sessions as well. Just to mention that the DMP template and guides are based on the European guides as well. And we start from the Horizon Europe Data Management Plan template. And we hope to adjusted to co-create the guides with the community. Also, a sister project to the Opus project is Grasspace project where we look at the open we look at the Opus RAF or at the Opus framework on a research assessment, and we pilot a new researcher profile. This process, this pilot exercise is described at the link below. We have recently given an interview on this pilot and where we are. We will try to test, pilot a comprehensive researcher profile for a broad and more personalized representation of a researcher contribution to science. And this will be made starting from the Brain Map platform, where we have researchers' profile in Romania. Another project I would like to mention, the Veles Excellent Hub. In this project we are partners in this project. We have a glimpse of how interoperability of data looks into practice, and precisely in the health domain. The project is pioneering the European health data space, is building the first regional smart health data space. And in this work, we are not looking directly at FAIR data, but because we look at the primary primary data and secondary data in health, but we look especially at the I in FAIR, the interoperability part, and this helps again our work of support. Also, a new project which is upcoming in Romania is defining recommendation for curricula and training needed to embrace open science, the open science transition. In this activity, we will try to map the needed skills, competencies, the professional profiles needed for open science, like the profiles of the technicians, the data curators, data stewards, which are needed for research data management. I will not go into details because there's a lot of information. I recommend you, if you're not part of the open science community in BrainMap, to have an account, to create an account, and to be updated on these projects that I've talked about. And there now we have over 1,000 members. And as I said, this is part of the BrainMap platform, which is the online community of researchers, innovators, technicians, and entrepreneurs in Romania. Most of the Romanian participating here today, I think they have an account. They received the information about this event through the community. In the main profile of a person, if you join the open science community, you can see the community updates, recent news, endeavors, initiatives at the international and national level. And we have 3 sections in the BrainMap community, a section dedicated to news, and this is very dynamic. You will see here a lot of recent news. You will also see that we inform you about sessions of training on FAIR RDM in pattern project, and other relevant news for the community. We have a working space section where we opened topics of interest for the community, like data management plans, where we put resources, and you also, members of the community, can share resources, links, and can propose topics to be opened according to your interest and needs. Also, the section events presents the relevant events at national and international level. You will see here that the upcoming event is on the conference I mentioned to you, and you will also see and find more information and the presentations of this event, the Romanian the FAIR National Roadshow. We also have the national portal to support the open science transition, where you will find resources developed by us, by our team in Romanian, and also resources, guides, policy papers, which are very important at the European level. Also in the ERTIS platform that we have, which is the platform for the research infrastructures, research services and technological services. You will find there a DMP template, but that's the old form of the DMP. We will have there the revised DMP after the consultation with the researchers, and more guides also in this platform to support the community. I know it's a lot. I will not go into further details. You will find my presentation. These are our collaboration with external projects with very impact. You can learn more details about other initiatives as well. And thank you very much. For now, I think I exceeded my allocated time. Sorry for that.
Thank you, Alina. We'll try to keep up our schedule, and now I will invite Brândușa Bițel from University of Medicine and Pharmacy, Carol Davila, who is currently Deputy Director of the Research Development and Innovation Department, and she will presenting the best practice in adoption of FAIR practices. Brândușa, please.
Thank you very much. So my name is Brândușa Bițel. I'm medical doctor, and my presentation today, as you said, thank you very much. It's about the best practices in adoption of the FAIR principles and lessons learned from the FAIR Impact project. First of all, I want to thank you to the FAIR team, especially to Joy Davidson and to our mentoring team. Thank you, UEFISCDI team, for the patience and guidance. Thank you, Alina and Andreea. And thank you to my team, Elena Poenaru, Dimitri Apostol, and Călin Poenaru. So this is the agenda of the today presentation. Lessons learned from the FAIR Impact project and our approach to a cultural organizational change. Our message to the research community, our challenges and actions implemented, and future plans. So FAIR Impact is not a project, it is a community. I met a community in which I learned that we are not alone in this complex and difficult endeavor. We learn the principles of FAIR. We learn ways to initiate change in an organizational culture. In fact, in a national culture. During this project, we created a team in our university, so I'm not by myself. The program initiated by the FAIR Impact team was intense and dense, maybe too difficult to sustain sometimes for us who do many types of tasks. It was very well created and organized, an example in this sense. Our goal in this project was to realize the open science policy. Sorry, so can you see my screen? Okay. So our goal in this project was to realize the open science policy. We created 4 versions during this project. An essential tool that helps us to identify both that we can do now as a university and to plan future actions is this checklist for the open science policy. I really appreciate that I have access to this instrument. As a result, the last version of the open science policy will be approved this month and it will be posted on our website. I want to talk a little bit now about the cultural change related to open science and data ownership means in an Eastern European medical university. So here it is our message. This is how we communicate with our research groups in a very simple way. We describe open science in a very simple, with easy to be understood words. The challenges. I have listed some of the essential issues we face in order to change mentalities. It is a reality, whether we like it or not, but many doctors consider that patients and their data belongs to them in one form or another. Of course, this way of seeing things is changing rapidly, especially among the new generations of doctors. Implementing the FAIR principles in a medical university setting requires strategic planning, infrastructure, and compliance with ethical standards, especially given the sensitivity of medical data. So here are some examples for proposed solutions to develop clear institutional policies on data sharings and make them accessible as possible while protecting patients' privacy, to include the GDPR and then HIPAA standards, to secure access through control authentication systems, to establish data sharing agreements with external researchers. We talk about genetic data. Yes, so this is the message to our researchers. We have two types of messages, one for scientific community and the other one is for university as a community. So the benefits for our university researchers is to increase access to more data, to increase national European visibility, increase number of citations for articles, increasing the use of research results. Wait a second. Sorry. Okay, so yes, sorry, I'm sorry. Something happened with my my presentation. I'm sorry. Okay. Yes. To increase the impact of the research, to establish a permanent link between various medical specialties and researchers, to access European funding programs. The open science approach, it's mandatory, of course, without ERC calls. And the message to the university community, it's another one, but it's, of course, it's connected with the first types of message to collection and it's about collection and storage of data and research results obtained for analyzing, the possibility to index and track institution scientific publications, to monitor the number of visit and use collections of data and indicators, to provide opportunities to use and reuse institutions' outputs for scientific data, CVs, publication excellence reports, to strengthen and develop the UEFISCDI, the international communication and collaboration channels, to create and recognize the international profile of our university. So our concrete actions for a change of organizational culture and for a change of mindset, it's first and foremost awareness actions. First of all, so we will publish the open science policy, and the next one will be the repository policy. We have a very strong support program for our researchers for financial support for dissemination of the results obtained from the excellence research activities through their publication in prestigious open access journals. This is a very successful program. We promote open access to research infrastructures to the ARTIS platform. And of course, training and data stewardship. There is a word, the most effective campaign was Jesus door to door. So this is, and this will be our approach, because we talk about open science, meaning repositories and FAIR principles in each and every scientific event we have in our university. And we give examples from other institutions we visit. Our planned actions regarding communication and dissemination activities. So we run a dedicated workshop for PhD students about open science and repositories. We had over 80 participants. We include small presentation in each and every event. We also have in plan more presentations, webinars, and also we plan to publish articles about this topic and our transformation. It is not easy, but it has to be done. So thank you once again to the FAIR team and to the UEFISCDI team. for us, it's work in project. Thank you.
Thank you, Brândușa, for keeping up the schedule. So now our next presenter is Vlad Popovici, who is a lecturer in history and coordinator for open data and databases within the Office for Open Science in Babeș-Bolyai University in Cluj. And currently is overseeing the implementation of the data repository at Babeș-Bolyai University. Vlad, we can hear you.
Yes, you can hear me now.
Now, yes, now,
Okay, and you can see the presentation.
of course.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be on your screens today, and I would like to thank the European Open Science Cloud and the FAIR National Roadshow series for hosting these events, and UEFISCDI Romania for the invitation, and also my colleagues at the Office for Open Science of Babeș-Bolyai University in Cluj for their feedback and support while preparing the presentation. My name is Vlad Popovici. My fair trade is history with a leaning towards digital humanities. I'm here today, however, wearing a different hat, namely that of coordinator for open data and databases within the Office for Open Science at Babeș-Bolyai University in Cluj-Napoca. My goal within the next about 15 minutes is to walk you through the ongoing process of adoption and implementation of FAIR principles at Babeș-Bolyai University in Cluj. As some of you may already know, Babeș-Bolyai University is currently the largest university in Romania, hosting 23 faculties and over 45,000 students, and covering all the main fields of education and scientific knowledge, from health and engineering to arts and humanities, as well as numerous research institutes and facilities. Such a wide research and teaching span generates different approaches to data creation, handling, and usage at grassroots level. Given this, I believe it instructive to begin by stressing briefly the challenges encountered by our university in choosing the best paths toward implementing the FAIR principles. A first category of major challenges that we face in implementing the FAIR principles in data management derives directly from the epistemic diversity and from the associated educational and research traditions and practices. Data sets from all fields of knowledge and of varying sizes are regularly generated at Babeș-Bolyai University. From small data sets, the results of experiments specifically designed to support the conclusions of articles, to large data sets of tens and hundreds of thousands of records. These data sets have been generated as the result of very different research needs, according to different best practices, and they are stored in the national repositories and databases, national repositories, even databases built within Babeș-Bolyai University. And these are some examples of such databases. Also, a comprehensive institutional list of these datasets and databases is not yet available. Moreover, some types of data held in these databases are so complex and interconnected that they would require special, dedicated, and sometimes very costly operations just to extract them into interconnected, FAIR-compatible datasets. I would like to provide just one example here. We have the historical population database of Transylvania, which hosts information from historical parish registers, vital registration data from middle 18th to middle 20th century. It's composed of about 100 interconnected tables and has tens of thousands of records, and is constantly expanding. Transferring all this data into a FAIR-compatible or in several FAIR-compatible data sets while preserving the historical particularities it encompasses would require a standalone large-scale digital humanities projects. And this is just one, albeit the largest database that we have at Babeș-Bolyai in history, because we have databases and datasets in each field of research and knowledge. A second category of challenges are those related to the institutional framework. Babeș-Bolyai University hosts multiple research centers whose activity also involves data production and storage. Traditionally, these activities were in the fields of natural sciences, economics and engineering, cognitive or social sciences. Over the last 10 years, however, many datasets and databases have also started to be produced in the humanities. Until recently, there was no specialized internal structure within the university to manage and catalog this data production and to provide support and advice. Researchers were aligning their products to domain-specific best practices or to the requirements of the repositories where they choose to host their datasets. An institutional repository was also lacking, preventing Babeș-Bolyai members from storing their datasets in a home-based digital environment. Finally, a third category of challenges, derived from the previous two, are those related to the teaching of FAIR principles to students, as to future researchers. At the moment, institutional guidelines on how the FAIR principles should be integrated into the educational process are still in construction. Various particular aspects of the FAIR principles are being taught in methodological, in ethical, or in digital literacy courses spread from BA to postgraduate levels, but there certainly is room for improvement in this regard. The aforementioned challenges have forced us to reevaluate the way we approach data management and to look for solutions that contribute to the adoption, promotion, and implementation of the FAIR principles among researchers and students. Increased interest for scientific data management came into the wider framework of implementing open science practices at Babeș-Bolyai University and gained traction mainly starting with 2022 through a series of projects supported by the Romanian National Council for the Financing of Higher Education. The envisioned solution implied an initial top-down approach, namely the gradual institutionalization of open science within the university through the establishment of a dedicated work group in 2022 in charge of managing and developing the existing open science tools and practices, as well as implementing new ones. The main strategic aim was to close the gap between local and international research and infrastructures in terms of open science. The working group's activity proved fructuous on multiple levels. Between 2022 and 2024, open science was promoted, among others, in our university through dozens of events by in-house and external scholars, including foreign specialists, some of them involved in data management and stewardship. Also, the research infrastructure was consolidated and extended, including tools meant to generate and host data. In this regard, a platform for citizen science was built from scratch and is currently operational, while establishing an institutional repository became a priority, and the process has already been started. In July 2024, the working group gained formal status through its transformation into the Office for Open Science. The top-down approach evidently continues, but I am pleased to highlight that steps have been made and early results can be seen in encouraging Babeș-Bolyai community members to get involved in open science and data creation activities, for now mainly through the Citizen Science platform and paid junior fellowships at this Office for Open Science. In regard to the solutions under implementation, within the framework of the aforementioned approach, with the aim of addressing the data management aspects of open science and bearing in mind that the ultimate goal in this regard is to align the latter to the FAIR principles, the Open Science Working Group and more recently the Office for Open Science has taken the following steps. The slide lists the ongoing activities in this regard. First, the implementation of an institutional data repository, linked to international repositories and following the FAIR principles. For this purpose, a preliminary documentation stage, including discussions with data management specialists from Utopia member universities, has been carried out since last year. In the same period, discussions with Elsevier representatives started to decide whether the turnkey solution offered through Elsevier Digital Commons data is compatible both technically and in terms of facilities with Babeș-Bolyai infrastructure and needs. In the first half of 2024, the procurement process of Digital Commons data started, which should be finalized this month, hopefully, when we expect to start its implementation. At this point, I would like to stress that the main reason why this process has covered such an extended timeline is related to the national procurement legislation. Digital Commons data was by no means an inexpensive solution, but in relation to the costs of implementing a repository from scratch and training the staff needed to connect it to international repositories, we consider it to be the best short and possibly mid-term solution that provides the fastest and smoothest process of harmonizing Babeș-Bolyai generated datasets with international requirements, including FAIR data. In parallel, we are also testing possibilities offered by open source solutions, such as DSpace in some faculties, with the idea of later transforming one of these faculty DSpace setups into a university-wide platform. Second, an inventory of data sets and databases is being built. In view of the implementation of the institutional repository, we've started to compile this list of the data that we have in our institution. And the goal is to not only to have a clear view of this data, but also to have a clear view of the researchers who are generating the data, which will form the next main target pool for discussions and educating Babeș-Bolyai community towards the FAIR principles. Third, promoting FAIR principles among members of Babeș-Bolyai community. As previously mentioned, in the last 2 years, dozens of presentations and discussions related to various aspects of open science have taken place at our university. Of these, some were related to data management, others included aspects related to FAIR practices. The next milestone, for example, on this list will be a workshop 2 weeks from now with PhD students in history, which will take place during the International Open Access Week, 21st, 27th October, which also includes references to storing data in data repositories, FAIR principles, and FAIR management of data. We believe it important that the students are accustomed not only to the concept, but also to the, at least to the theoretical best practices. Fourth, we've left at the end probably the richest, most impactful, and closest to FAIR principles dataset created in our university, the journal collection of Studia Universitatis Babeș-Bolyai. The entire Studia Babeș-Bolyai series, comprising 29 journals, has fully committed since 2021 to open access model, is hosted in an institutional repository using permanent identifiers and bibliographical metadata. Although it is not a classical dataset, Studia Babeș-Bolyai collection is an example of the implementation of FAIR principles at our university. In regard to the envisioned developments, our strategy for data management and implementation of FAIR principles includes 2 main pillars. The first pillar concerns the development of the necessary tools and the training of the related personnel. On short term, which would be next year, hopefully, we aim at having a functional digital data commons repository populated with in-house generated datasets, and to encourage the existing initiatives for using open source solutions at faculty level. We also aim at increasing the synergy between the citizen science platform, which is a data generator tool in itself, and the repository. So much more as the platform has been recently opened for proposals by citizens, and in a few weeks it will be open to researchers from outside Babeș-Bolyai universities, from all research institutions in Romania. The second pillar, aiming towards midterm developments, concerns educating the university community in the fair use of research-generated data, from students to top researchers. In regard to the former, the Office for Open Science will advocate the mandatory inclusions of FAIR data management in the curricula of the relevant classes, mainly methodological and digital literacy classes, and will prepare support materials for teachers, including written and visual guides. The ethical dimension of working with data will not be overlooked, and an institutional guide of ethically dealing with data is among the deliverables of the ongoing FDI project, with a deadline in November this year. Regarding the researchers, once we have a clear inventory of the institutional data resources, the next step is to align them to the FAIR principles. We intend to provide support and advice to teams and to researchers who want to adapt existing database structures or datasets so they can become easily findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Education plays a crucial role in the sustainability of both of these initiatives. And as Babeș-Bolyai University promotes the integration of students in research activities, our medium and long-term intention is that the FAIR principles will make a successful transition from textbooks into practice, providing an opportunity for the students to work directly with real and complex data. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Popovic. We are back on schedule. So now I would like to introduce yourself to Sonia Filipovska. Is a professor of Faculty of Computer Science in the Engineering in University of Skopje, North Macedonia. She's a former partner in UEFISCDI regional funded project, and she will present us the FAIR by Design methodology from Skill for UEFISCDI project. Sonia?
Thank you, Dragos. I hope you can see the slides and we can start.
Yeah, we can start, yeah.
Okay, great. So as Dragos mentioned, I come from North Macedonia, but today here I represent Skills for UEFISCDI. I'm the task leader for the FAIR by Design methodology, which is one of the key outputs of the project. But before I tell you about the FAIR by Design methodology, I will just give you a couple of important information about the Skills for UEFISCDI. It's another project in parallel to FAIR Impact. We collaborate on multiple topics together. It's also a 3-year-long project, and we are in the final year of the project. The main goals for Skills for UEFISCDI are actually related to training about open science and the FAIR principles. So it's trying to fill out the identified gaps with the strategic research and innovation agenda. And this is the lack of open science and data expertise, the professional profiles, and the fragmentation in training resources. If you paid attention, training was mentioned already several times in the previous presentations as well. So it is one of the pillars on how we can promote FAIR and how we can promote open sciences. So these are the key activities and key concepts in Skills for UEFISCDI in which we try to do this basically. So the first one is creation of competence centers around the partners, a network of these centers that will work together in promotion of FAIR and open science. The definition of minimum viable skill sets so that we can define formally the different professional profiles related to open science, the FAIR by Design methodology that we will see later, and then training on different topics using the methodology with the defined minimum viable skills. All of this is created and being created using a so-called co-creation mechanism. What does it mean? It's that all of the stuff that is done inside Skill for UEFISCDI is not done in isolation. For every deliverable, for every action that we do, we undergo a co-creation process with 2 steps. First, we ask the whole consortium to give us feedback and input, and we implement this inside our key outputs. And then we also ask the whole global community to take a look at what we are doing, to provide us with their feedbacks. And every time we receive a feedback, we analyze it and we try to improve the output, and we try to adapt it to the specific needs of the community. So if you go to the Skills for UEFISCDI website, or if you go to our Zenona community, you will see all of the outputs. If you have any comments, any input, please feel free to give them to us. We will take them into consideration and try to improve our outputs. Nothing which is done in Skill for UEFISCDI is written in stone. This is the main workflow which is happening right now in Skills for UEFISCDI. So we defined a minimum viable skill set for different types of profiles. These tell you what are the competencies that one person should have in order to call themselves a data professional, a librarian, or anything else connected to open science and FAIR. And then we devise training materials based on these skill sets that are needed. The training is supposed to fill the gaps and fill the competencies that were identified. To make sure that the whole process of training is fair, this is the moment when we use the FAIR by Design methodology. The FAIR by Design methodology tells you how to develop training materials that are going to be fair, which means reusable by both instructors and learners. All of the training materials are developed using the methodology, and then they are delivered to trainers, which are then supposed to organize their own national trainings and further disseminate the information that is provided. We are currently in the phase when we are starting this training of trainers. The first training is actually set to start on Friday next week. And then until December, we are going to do the whole set of training on different topics related to open science. As I mentioned before, I'm here to tell you more about the FAIR by Design methodology, which is one of the key outputs of the project. This is the very bird's eye view of the methodology and its actions. The idea is that we are developing FAIR learning materials by using the very popular backward instructional design process, which we adapted so that it is empowered with FAIR principles. What we are trying to achieve is that at the end of these phases, When we come to deliver, we have fair learning materials that are fair from both the point of view of a learner, of a consumer of the learning materials, but also from the point of view of a peer trainer and instructor. So someone else who would like to reuse the whole or parts of the learning materials for their own purposes, for their own training. I will try to go through all of the stages and give you an idea of the main activities that you are supposed to do while you're developing learning materials in order to make sure that at the end of the process, you are going to have fair materials. However, before we start, you should be aware if you want to make something fair, right, it requires commitment. So of course, when you're developing fair learning materials, you will spend more time on the process of developing the learning materials. However, in the end, you get something that has more value and more quality than if you're following the standard process. In order to do the FAIR by design methodology, of course, you need to require a few more new skills, such as understanding of the FAIR principles, the use of metadata, the use of licensing, and so on, so that you are sure that you're implementing all of the FAIR principles as you should be. And of course, it's very, very important to think about FAIR from the beginning of the development of the materials. That's why the FAIR by design methodology include the FAIR steps from the beginning when you're still thinking about what you want to produce until the end when you're providing the material to the rest of the public. We tried to think of all of the details that you will need in the process, but as I said, if you have any feedback, if you have any comment, please feel free to contact us and we will make sure to implement this inside the methodology. The first phase is the preparation phase. So this is the moment when you are supposed to learn about the FAIR principles if you haven't done already. But some of the things which are very important inside this phase is, for an example, understanding the use of the RDA minimum metadata schema, which is currently the only specific metadata schema that is used to describe learning and training materials. The other thing that you need to be aware of in the prepare stage is what are you going to make fair? So what we are doing in the methodology is we are making fair learning objects where we define a learning object as a package of different types of materials which are related to at least one learning outcome. So it's not just one item, one image, or one document. It's a whole complete package that is related with all of the learning content you need to go through in order to achieve one learning objective or one learning outcome. This is the moment when we start the backward instructional design process, and in the prepare stage, we do the first brainstorm when we are discussing what we want to do, what is the purpose, what is the target audience, what are the prerequisites for our training, what is the scope, and the most important thing, what are the learning objectives that we want to achieve. Our recommendation, for an example, is to use the Bloom's taxonomy as a smart taxonomy that can help you define very good the learning objectives that are going to guide you into the rest of the process. Once you know what you want to achieve, the next step is the discover stage. Of course, we are using the discover stage not to start from scratch, but to try and reuse something that already exists out there. Just be careful, whatever you find that you want to reuse out there, it has to be available under a permissible license. If it's not available under a permissible license, then you can be inspired by this material, but you cannot really reuse it because the license doesn't allow you to do that. There are many, many places where you can already find existing learning materials which are available under a permissible license, like open educational resource repositories or many training repositories from different EOSC projects, or even general repositories such as the Creative Commons Search, but also Zenodo and OSF, which have a lot of different materials on different topics. Don't forget that in this stage, you're also supposed to search for some multimedia, because it has been shown that when you're developing learning materials, it's good to have them in different modalities so that different people with different affinities towards learning can read the content, can view the image, can see the video, can listen to the audio, and in this way improve their knowledge on the topic. You got inspired and you found stuff that you want to reuse. Now is the time for the third stage, which we call design. The first step here is to create a concept of whatever the training that you want to define. Once you do the concept, you basically put the main ground for developing the syllabus for the training. The syllabus for the training will contain the minimum information about the structure and the idea of the training. Once you have this blueprint in mind, then you can proceed with the rest and put down the details. Define all of the resources that you're going to reuse, define the places where you need to develop new content because you were not able to find something that is reusable. In this stage, what you need to remember is that when we say you need to develop learning content, this is not just a set of slides or a text with images. It's actually a whole package that needs to have a learning unit plan, a notebook for learning, slides, maybe yes, maybe no, depending on the learning type, description of the activities, because every learning needs to have some kind of activities in order to check how the learners are going through the stage of learning, and assessment if necessary. In addition to this, you also need to provide a facilitation guide. This is a document that is actually meant for other people that would like to reuse your training to be able to understand how to reuse your material best. So you describe what are the activities that need to be done before the training, during the training, after the training. One of the things that also needs to be designed in this stage is the feedback form, because as the whole co-creation process is implemented in Skills for EOSC, it's also implemented in the FAIR by Design methodology itself. That means that all of the learning materials, when they are designed, at the end and delivered, they do not stop. They continue to live and they get to be improved based on the feedback that you receive from both learners and from instructors. In the fourth stage, you now have the whole structure, you know everything that you need to develop. You start and develop it. You need to choose tools which are going to provide you with the final content for the learners, but also the editable content that you would like to share with your peer instructors. Here you need to be careful to use open file formats so that you can say that what you produced is fair and reusable by others. And it would be great if you're using a granular versioning system so that if you work as a team on a project, everybody knows how to contribute together with the others, and you have minimum conflicts between each other. One of the specific things about the FAIR by Design methodology for learning materials is that we extend the meaning of accessibility. In the FAIR principles, accessibility is focused on how you can access the resource. In training materials, accessibility is more than that. It talks about covering the widest range of learners that need or may not need assistive technology in order to consume the learning content. So when we say accessible, we mean accessible in every way. As to do this, you need to follow different accessibility standards depending on the formats that you're using. So while you're producing, you go back and forth, work on different documents, try to finalize the content. When you're done and you think that's it, then it would be nice at the end of the produce stage to go through an internal quality assessment just to check if you have everything that you need, are all of the documents and files developed as they should be. Once you are done with everything, you're ready to publish the learning content. Before you publish, you need to make sure that you have all of the metadata, that you have all of the accompanying files that help others reuse your content. So it would be nice if you have README notes, if you have how to cite definitions, if you have a code of conduct, just to make sure that you can collaborate with others on creating new versions of your learning materials. When you have all of this, then you can deposit the learning materials in a repository of your choice. It would be great if this repository is a FAIR repository, but it's not a strong requirement. Just make sure that you deposit the editable materials so that they can be reused by others and changed if necessary. For the learners, you deposit the learning materials in their final formats on a learning management system of your choice, depending on what you are using. You might need to do additional tweaks depending on the learning platform. Once you published, you're actually not done. This is the moment when you are starting to get feedback from others, and when you try to get the opinion of external parties on whether your materials are really high quality and whether they are really fair. For these purposes, we developed different types of quality assessment checklists that you can use in order to define the level of fairness of your materials. And you can also share them with others, because whenever other people that have not developed the material look at the material, they don't have this cognitive bias, and it's easy for them to find the places that you might have missed before. It's good to make the quality assessment from both the instructor and the learner perspective, and of course, gather all of the feedback that you can, because this can be input for a new version. At this point, you have published and you have verified your first version of the FAIR by Design learning materials. You're ready to use them for a training, online, face-to-face, hybrid, whatever. But as I said, the journey doesn't stop there, because you're gathering feedback from internal channels, from external channels. You should then continue analyzing all of the feedback that you have gathered, define the priority of the improvements that you would like to implement, and then go back and go through the stages again and create a new version of your learning materials. And this process never stops, because there is always a moment for improving, for making sure that the material is up to date, maybe extending, maybe doing some other changes depending on your needs. To help you on your journey of developing FAIR by Design methodology learning materials, we are providing you with these links, which are the main resources that we have developed inside Skills for EOSC, like the up-to-date methodology and different training courses that we already developed inside the project. Please feel free to follow these links and to gather more information about how you can put into practice the FAIR by Design methodology. Inside Skills for EOSC, there is another task that is working on the so-called recognition framework. This recognition framework actually talks about how people can get recognized when they were doing some kind of training that has been provided to them. So we are offering a framework that tells you how you can implement open badges or the European digital credentials in order to make sure that people that have been to your training or have used your learning materials and have obtained new skills can show to their employees that they have new skills and they can be valued accordingly. As I mentioned before, Skills for EOSC is also developing a competence center network that is supposed to be a coordinating point for all of these activities related to open science. So they need to share services, resources, and tools in order to make sure that these competencies are going to be grown throughout the different communities. Right now, we have started with the delivery of the training of trainers. We will continue working on the competence center network and partner with different projects as we are doing it with FAIR Impact. And for the next step, which is really quite close, is the unconference session on the EOS Symposium, where you are invited to come and talk to us about the development of the training materials and competence centers inside EOSC. Thank you for your attention. I hope I was on time.
Thank you, Sonia, for this comprehensive methodology. You're in time. So now I will invite Daniel Garijo. He's a researcher at the Ontology Engineering Group at the Artificial Intelligence Department from the Computer Science Faculty of Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. His research activities focus on e-science and semantic web, and he will present us FAIR assessment tools. So Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me properly?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent. So I'm gonna share my screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
Excellent. So then I'll get started. All right, so today I have been asked to show you a little bit of what we have been doing as part of the EOSC FAIR Impact project in terms of FAIR assessment, but in particular on FAIR semantic artifact assessment, right? And we have been coming up with both a methodology and an implementation, which I wanted to tell you a little bit today. All right. So just to get started, we have seen, as the previous presenters already described, many how the impact and the rise of the FAIR data principles have affected different, not only institutions, but also different types of research outputs, right? So initially they were designed for data, but now we have seen also that communities have been put together to deal with research software, research workflows, and now semantic artifacts, and they are even considering expanding into different types of scientific artifacts, right? So the thing is that when it comes, my knowledge and my background is a little bit more on semantic web and knowledge representation. And while the notion of FAIR came up in 2016, there had been discussions for a while on how to actually put things in the web in a way that they are discoverable, they are maintainable, and they are machine readable, right? So in a sense, the notion of FAIR was present in my community a little, well, basically even 8 or 9 years before FAIR came along, right? And this was there was this article by the Linked Data Principles by Tim Berners-Lee and the 5-star ranking, where they said, well, if you put, or if you are creating data sets, it's not enough that you just, I don't know, create a PDF and put it online with your data. You should identify, give identifiers to the data, give HTTP URIs to make them machine readable, to try to make sure that these identifiers resolve to something that is useful for people, and that whenever things are seldomly described in isolation, right? Things are usually linked to other resources in the web. And there was this 5-star ranking that that basically stated not only whether things were available in the web, but also whether they were interoperable with using standards, open formats, and whether they were linking to other resources. Then people had seen how to apply these linked data principles to ontologies. There were best practices for assessing, for accessing and sharing vocabularies on the web, tutorials for publishing vocabularies, and now we have even seen guides for putting ontologies and vocabularies, and in general, that's what we call semantic artifacts in the web, following the FAIR principles. So right now I just gave you like 8 different resources or different articles. You can be entertained for hours, but the question is how does it all come together, right? And this is what we have been thinking in FAIR Impact, how to create methodologies to create FAIR semantic artifacts in a FAIR by design manner. So what we did is that we went to existing methodologies for ontology publication, like this was one of the ones that is more recent. It comes from the ontology engineering group, but there are others. And I really like this one because they have all these diagrams and everything is explained step by step in a very, very simple manner. So you can go to the paper, but if you see this picture, you more or less see what is the methodology that is proposed, right? That whenever you're proposing an ontology or vocabulary, you first have to write down the requirements to see what is the type of information that you want to represent. Then you need to encode it in a standard language that will be understandable by machines. Then you need to publish it on the web so that people can see what you're proposing to do. And finally, there is this maintenance where some people have new requirements, they need to include additional stuff, and then you need to iterate a little bit until you propose a vocabulary that is a mini standard, or at least is used within a community. Because remember that semantic artifacts usually the thing about them is that they represent consensus, right? So we took this methodology and tried to think, okay, how can we actually propose some steps in here to make it fair by design? And this is the extension that we propose within FAIR Impact. We proposed two different steps. One was for FAIR ontology pre-assessment. The pre-assessment indicates that the ontology is not yet in the web. You have been iterating with your partners, with your colleagues, and maybe you are not completely sure whether it complies with everything that should comply. So it's not yet on the web, but you want to make sure how aligned with the FAIR principles is it, no? So in this iterative process, it basically is the last thing you would do. You would evaluate your ontology to see whether it fits the current requirements that you have, and then you run the pre-assessment, the FAIR pre-assessment. And the FAIR pre-assessment only checks for part of these things, right? Because if part of the FAIR assessment checks whether ontology is available in the web, it's not yet in the web. And then after you publish in the web, we have the FAIR ontology assessment, which basically checks that your resource is resolvable, that the metadata associated with your resource is there, that your resource is also findable in an external catalog, and so on. So basically, these are the two steps that we propose to make it fair by design on each iteration of the ontology development process or the vocabulary development process. And in particular, when you run the assessments, this is what you do. You do a set of soft assessments when you are doing the pre-assessment, and you run everything when you are running the assessment. It is very simple, right? So these are, I'm not going to go in the particulars because I know that we are pressured in times, but I welcome you to have a look at this milestone that we published in Zenodo, where we basically detail what are the different steps that you should check whenever you want to run the pre-assessment and whenever you need to run the full ontology assessment. And what I'm going to do next is to show you, before going into the tools, which I'm going to show you in a second, I wanted to tell you that a lot of the discussion that we have been having regarding fairness is about metadata and what is the minimum metadata that you should support. So what we did is to look at this from different perspectives, because I think this, I wanted to bring it to you because this discussion may happen in also different communities. So what we did is first look at many, over 5,000 different type of semantic artifacts that people had already put in the web. And then we looked at what metadata they consider important to declare, no? To basically, because we can suggest people to add 100 metadata fields, but being realistic, nobody wants to fill 100 different metadata fields. So instead, we wanted to try and see, okay, what are the typical metadata fields that people usually fill up? And then we also looked into the state of the art and see whether domain experts had also suggested certain support for different metadata fields. And also we aligned the different FAIR principles to existing metadata fields and aligned all the metadata categories with the MOD, which is a vocabulary for describing metadata in semantic artifacts, and basically try to come up with a principled way of suggesting what is the minimum metadata, required metadata, and additional metadata that you may add in your vocabulary. All right, and now in the rest of the time that I have, I wanted to tell you how we have implemented this methodology in FOOPS, which is the ontology pitfall scanner for FAIR, which you can access at this URL, w3id.org/FOOPS. And this is a very simple tool, right? I mean, it's a validation service inspired by another validation tool for ontologies, which is OOPS. And we only adapted the things that we were trying to validate against the FAIR principles. It is designed to guide, so it will give you a score, but again, the score is not the most important thing in the world. The important is that the tests have an explanation and all the tests indicate what are the potential errors that you may be currently doing in your current vocabulary so as to improve it, right? And of course, it's aligned with the FAIR principles. So how does it work? Well, you just enter an ontology URI. It has to be a valid ontology URI or else it won't work. And then you'll see something like this, where first you'll see a short metadata summary, and then for each principle, it will tell you, for each FAIR category, it will tell you all the subtests that have been run, and also what were the results. Some of these subtests have a percentage because, well, for example, the minimum metadata doesn't run only one test, it runs like 2 or 3 things, and well, for each one also you'll see the test description and the explanation. For example, here, vocabulary reuse. Well, I could not find any imported or reused vocabularies, indicating that in the FAIR principles, it is suggested that you build up on things that already exist. And we also return this fairness score according to the different tests that we have been doing for the categories, and this is the same information but divided by different categories. It's a spider diagram, right? And I would like to note that this may be a quality indicator, but it's not a proxy for quality, right? There is no minimum threshold designed for fairness, and this is by design, because again, when we are doing all this effort for FAIR, is a means to improve how people reuse and find resources on the web. I could have something that is very fair, but that it's not very good in quality. And I want to emphasize this in every single talk that I give about this, because I feel like when we are doing this effort, some people confuse that a high FAIR score is a high quality score, and that's not necessarily true. It is true, though, that in some cases, very high quality resources should have a high quality FAIR score, right? But the other way around is not necessarily true. All right, and this is a summary of the supported tests in FOOPS. So I can spend here 5 minutes or half an hour, depending on the time that I have. But in any case, it's basically an adaptation of the FAIR principles to semantic artifacts. So instead of looking at things about datasets, it looks whether the ontology URI is resolvable in the web, basically whether it can be found in different catalogs, whether you are using standards such as RDF serializations to access it in the web using common protocols. Interoperability looks more into the metadata and into the vocabularies that you reuse, whether you use existing standards or you're creating your own. And reusability looks whether there is documentation of the vocabulary, whether the content negotiation of the vocabulary is well done, whether there is a license, as the previous speakers have emphasized, because if there is no license, you cannot reuse, you can only, well, be inspired by this resource, and also existing metadata. And well, as part of future work, I talked in my methodology that we are including the pre-assessment and the assessment bits of FOOPS, but we currently support for the full assessment. We are about to finish the pre-assessment support. So basically, before you could only upload ontologies, but now you will be able to drop in your ontology files that are work in progress. Of course, we do not store anything in the server. Otherwise, you can just run the FOOPS application yourself and see locally how everything works. And we will also support for ontology snippets that you may want to assess, right? And one of the things that I also think is very cool, that is not necessarily part of FAIR, but at several projects that are working towards this, is that we are working towards not only telling you what's wrong, but also telling you how to fix it, which is providing suggestions for each test that maybe did not work. This is very important because I feel like this is this is actually what people are looking for, no? Not like, oh, well, yeah, I tried to resolve this identifier and it didn't work. And you're like, okay, well, what do you want me to do about it? Well, the suggestion will tell you what is it that you can do. Maybe it's something as silly as add this metadata field in your vocabulary, and now you will complete it with the license that you have, and now you will pass this test. Or some maybe a little bit more complicated, like, well, it looks like you have published this resource in a server that is not resolving. Contact the administrator and tell them to put this file in it to do the proper content negotiation, right? So, but what I think this is important is because people that do not have the technical skill, or we do not know where to get started, thanks to the suggestion, they will know how to get started. And I think that's it. So I can show you a quick demo if you want, or else I'm happy to just take any questions at this point.
We will have a Q&A session in a moment, but you still have like 3-4 minutes for the demo, if it's feasible for you.
Oh, absolutely, yes. So I hope it's up, by the way, because I tried it. You know how this goes.
Yeah, the
so
demo effect.
the demo effect, right? So yeah, so you just put the ontology here, and by the way, just to show you what this is an example of a vocabulary. It's a vocabulary example, of course, but this is an ontology that is available in RDF, right? This is how it works. You see that there is metadata associated with the ontology. Here is telling you, this is an example vocabulary designed to illustrate how to publish vocabularies in the web, following the FAIR principles, right? It tells you that it has a title, that it has a creator, that it has a license, and additional metadata, right? And it has properties, it has classes. I don't know how, what is the expertise of the people in the room, but well, it's basically a database schema in a machine-readable manner. And this is how we organize information when we want to integrate information together, right? So this is the documentation of the vocabulary, which is, so it has researchers, students, organizations. This is the same information that I was having here in Turtle, right? So these are the classes. It's just that it's a little bit more human readable, because when you want to go to the specification, you want to read the definition of the stuff, and you don't want to go to this very ugly file, no? You want to just see it here. And then, where did I have the FOOPS thing? Oops. Let me go back. Here it is. Sorry about that. So, and here you see that, well, the demo, I mean, the tool went through the vocabulary and it told me, see, well, it's okay, but you still have some points of improvement, and it tells you the degree for which each test and what each test does. So let's see at the tests that it failed, for example. I'm going to come here and it says, oh, I could not find this ontology in a metadata registry. Of course, it's an example ontology, so we did not register in LOV, which is the linked open vocabularies. In case you don't know, this is a registry of ontologies that has hundreds of ontologies. And I don't know, you look for creator here, well, it will tell you, oh, you can use DCG creator or Cree. So there are many vocabularies that define this. So this is very like a nice place to come and see and search for terms. If you come here, it will tell you, well, this test did not pass because we couldn't find it in LOV. There are other registries which we could include, like Bioportal and so on, but so far we support this one. And again, this is a point of improvement. It's okay if you don't have it, because you may have it in another registry, but hey, if you can improve it, then it's better. Then let's see other things. Vocabulary reuse. Well, it's telling you that for metadata, this vocabulary is reusing metadata defining common schemas, which is good, but this vocabulary is not reusing any existing vocabularies because it's not complex enough, and that's completely fine, right? It's just telling you that this is a point of improvement. Usually, you may want to reuse existing vocabularies, but if you don't, it's not necessarily a bad thing, no? And here it tells you that some recommended metadata it's not there. So, for example, citation was not found, and well, a point of improvement, and that also it didn't find a DOI or a publisher, and it tells you what is the metadata that was not found. And that's it. That's the demo. Any questions so far?
Thank you. If you have any question, please do write it in the Q&A section, and after Sarah's presentation, we'll open the discussion. So now I will invite Sara Pitone, is a Senior Project Manager at Trust IT Services and FAIR Impact Outreach Manager. And she will present us the FAIR implementation catalog.
Thanks a lot, Dragos, and thanks everybody for joining. I'll be pretty quick, and instead of using slides, I'm adding you a link in the chat, which is the page that you can see on my screen, I hope at least, which refers to the FAIR implementation framework, because FAIR Impact worked in preparing a framework that should help different stakeholders, so from researchers to data stewards to repository managers, assess their drivers for becoming more fair. And the framework highlights two main aspects. So on one side, it explains that while the adoption and the implementation of specific tools and methodology, of course, is crucial for enabling fair practices, it's also important to look at other factors that impact the entire data value chain. So this framework evolved a previous one, that is the ACME FAIR methodology, and provides you a guideline on assessing different capabilities at different moments in your data management path to put in practice the FAIR enabling practices. So this again is another supporting tool, supporting guidelines that you can be combining it with the FAIR by design approach and with the others methodology that you already implement in your daily work. In addition to that, we have also compiled a catalog of resources, which includes so far 45 resources that support the FAIR implementation practices. We have collected this through a desktop research initially of partners of the FAIR Impact team, who have identified the some resources which are, of course, ready, tested, public and open access available, and for which there is a community that supports the resource itself and can provide support to users needing more information about them. They cover basically different domains. The majority are domain agnostic, so can be adapted to many scientific domains. And we have categorized them in 4 main categories. So we have guidelines, methodologies, and documents. We have methodologies, tools, and instruments that affect, let's say, the functioning and working mechanism of metadata and ontologies, in addition to some ontologies itself that are referenced here. And then software and tools and some training materials. So we hope that this categorization can help you browse the resources. And we have also indicated for which type of users they are relevant among data service providers, research performing organizations and universities, international levels. In some cases, they are affecting extra, say, communities that work at international level, so extra European as well. or a national level, so national fund entities. This is the catalog. So the invite is for you to browse and see if you find anything useful. For instance, today we have learned about the FAIR by design methodology, so it's included here. And each of these pages provides a short overview and high-level details about the resource, but also a link to access the resource where it currently is hosted, so outside the FAIR Impact website. And you have also some details of contact information in case you want to know more. Or the other one is groups, for instance. Yeah. And there is also the possibility to suggest a resource, since this catalog, of course, is a live tool. We are open to review other methodologies or tools that or you use or you know that exist. And there is a form that you can simply use to suggest a resource, and then this is passed to the FAIR Impact team for an assessment and in case publication. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Now I will open the discussion. We already have some questions for University of Babeș-Bolyai. If Professor Popovici is still available, because
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. So
yes.
First of all, we have some congratulations from Cristina Lincaru and a couple of questions. The first one is, do you have now professionalized data stewards?
The answer is, can I ask each of them, can I answer each of them separately, please?
Yeah, that's the first question. Do you have professional data stewards?
Thank you. Well, sadly, we don't have professional data stewards yet. We have this program of fellowships within the Office for Open Science. We are trying to identify through these fellowships young researchers, PhD students who would be available for entering data steward training program. We are aware that we have to build this corps of data stewards, but we don't have them yet.
Okay, we are asked to open our camera to have a picture soon to be taken. But I will ask the second question for, do you change your organizational structure at UBB?
No, I wouldn't say change. I would say complemented it. So this Office for Open Science, because I assume the question regards the existence of this office, was born out of the working group. It has only been established for 3 months now, July 2024. It's not yet budgeted because it couldn't have been budgeted on this year's budget. It will probably be budgeted next year or in a couple of years, and the intent is to become an official administrative structure of the university. It now functions as part of the university as the Center for University Strategy at Babeș-Bolyai.
Okay, thank you. And now, related to budget, how do you manage this new department of data management?
Well, it's at this point, and actually all that we have done, all the steps we have taken towards open science have been taken within the framework of 3 projects financed by the FDI, the Development Fund, which Alina also mentioned in her presentation. And it is by means of this project that it was financed until now.
Okay, and the final question from Cristina Lincaru is, this approach is okay for small R&D organizations? From your point of view.
From my point of view, it's feasible in terms that you don't have to build a special office for this, but it would be very useful if in a small RD organization there would be at least one person who could manage issues related to, well, open science, data management, fair data. It really depends also on the specific of the research that is being undertaken in the respective institution.
Thank you.
Yes, I think one person per institution should exist.
Okay, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your experience. And there was a question for Daniel, but he answered. But if he wants to elaborate, the question was to how is the similarity with graphs like Springer Nature SciGraph?
Right. So yeah, thank you for the question. The thing here is that there is a difference between what a vocabulary or a semantic artifact is and the knowledge graph, right? So the vocabulary has the definitions of for example, it tells you what a person is, and the graph has a list of 1 million persons according to that vocabulary, right? So usually the SciGraphs, well, I've seen these also scientific knowledge graphs like in OpenAir and other editorials. What they do have is all those things. So our tool, or the FAIR assessment, is for assessing the taxonomies, the ontologies, and the semantic artifacts, not the knowledge graph itself, because that's I mean, that requires deep analysis of each individual resource and so on. So I just wanted to clarify that. And in terms of that, I mean, there are very few similarities, because as far as I know, for knowledge, the information in knowledge graphs, we don't have a FAIR assessment tool.
Thank you very much. And we also have a remark from Mr. Nicolae Constantinescu that unfortunately there is no career path for this yet, and the impact in the research community will be minimal. So if one of the panelists would like to make a comment on that, or yeah, Alina, please.
I think Daniel was first.
Yeah.
All right, I can be very quickly. Thank you, Alina. So there are two things, no? Whether there is career path, and it is true, but I've seen also, well, it has been mentioned as well as the DORA declaration and so on, and the impact of open science practices is increasingly important for the career of research scientists, right? We have seen this in Spain, where now if you have like a data set that is impactful for the community, will also be accepted as part of your academic curricula. So the more that we invest in also disseminating these best practices, the more impact the resources will have. As for the second part of this assertion, the impact in the research community will be minimal. Well, I mean, I very much disagree with this. And there are studies that have shown that if you put your stuff, well, FAIR is a branding thing, right? But if you put your stuff in a way that is open accessible in the web, your papers tend to be more cited. Your work also tends to be more accepted in high-tier conferences. So there is evidence starting to build up against that statement.
Thank you, Daniel. Alina?
Just a comment that there's a new research career framework in developing. It's based on the council conclusion from December 2020, third last year, and this new career framework approaches open science, the need to develop capacities for open science. Moreover, in my presentation, I put some information about an upcoming activity. We will have part of a national project to develop recommendations for curricula and training programs at national level to train staff to train data stewards, data curators, and other data engineers. We will map and we will identify in this activity.
Sonia?
Yes, what I can add here is that in Skills for IOSC, as I mentioned before, we started to map these skills that different professional profiles need to have. And you can look at the link here that I'm sending to you. We already have a group of profiles and skills we have developed, and we hope that this is a starting point for others to try to develop this path for training, professional, academic, and so on, so that one can reach all of the skills and goals for the different profiles.
Thank you, Sonia. I don't see any more questions. I would like to move on. We have a short presentation from Jay Davidson, which is Associate Director of the UK's Digital Creation Center, and leads the work package to engagement, adoption, and implementation in the FAIR Impact project. She will be presenting us the FAIR Impact support program.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I will try to be very, very quick so that we can keep you to time. So I just wanted to give you a very brief overview of the kind of work we've been doing in FAIR Impact to provide some support. We have three basic types of support we've been running now for the last couple of years. The first is where we don't give you any money, but you get access to our time. So we work one-to-one with research performing organizations, repository and data services, and national level initiatives. And we've had 3 support programs already completed, and we're now working our way through the second iteration. And we have worked with several of the Romanian partners that I see in the call today. So it's great to see you here. The other kind of support we do is financial support. And this is for people who are maybe a little bit more advanced on their FAIR enabling journeys. This is where they get a little bit of time and money to test a particular tool or approach. This is based on, people just sometimes it can be hard to find the time in your day to test tools and things that you'd like to. So this just hopefully gives you a little bit of a justification to be able to spend some time and look at tools and start to play around with them. And then the third version of our support is just some open and public implementation workshops. These are running to the end of the project, so please take a look at the website and you'll see when they're coming up. Some stats, up until about the end of June, we had worked with about 120 plus teams, consisting of almost 300 people, and that's been really great working with everyone. We've learned a lot, and hopefully everybody has learned something as well, not just from us, but from the peers that they've been working with. So it's been a fruitful program so far. We do now have our final open call for financial support. It opened on Monday last week. We have 4 different support actions that you can apply to join. I won't go into very great detail on this, but you can join a webinar later on this week if you want to learn more. The first is to work with some components developed by the FAIR Core for EOS project. And this will allow successful applicants to be introduced to the components and then to work with one or more of the components to improve the machine actionability of their existing metadata schemas and crosswalks. So that's one that you can look at. We also have a support action which is going to allow successful applicants to self-assess their services against the EOS interoperability framework, making use of the FAIR Core for EOS compliance assessment tool. That's another one. We have a third support action, which will be allowing successful applicants to test a prototype that we're developing in the FAIR Impact project. And the prototype is really looking to allow us to expose more information about trustworthy and FAIR enabling repositories at the organization and at the object level. So that one is another one you can apply to join. And the last one is building on some of the work that you just heard from Daniel. So this is some work coming out of FAIR Impact to develop an API to allow us to be able to query semantic artifacts and semantic artifact catalogs. So there are 4 support actions you can apply to join. I'll give you a very brief description of what will happen in those support actions. So as I mentioned, these are more tailored to those who are probably a little bit more advanced on their FAIR enabling journey. So you can look at each of the open call descriptions and get a sense of what kinds of skills and knowledge you would need to participate. The applications will be open until December 4th, so you will have a chance to learn about them and be able to apply. It's a fairly straightforward, easy application process. The actions themselves will start in January 2025 and run through to April. They will be a series of usually between 3 and 5 virtual workshops that last for a couple of hours, and you will be expected to do some homework in between. So you'll get some time with your peers and your mentors to learn about the approaches, and then some time on your own. And this is where the financial support comes in. It allows you to go away, spend a bit of time on your own, being able to implement them. So have a look at the website if you'd like to learn a little bit more about those. And just to say that we will be having a webinar tomorrow. If you do want to learn more about this in detail and you're interested to apply, join us tomorrow. I think it's at 2 o'clock Central European time. And the 1 hour long webinar is just a chance to give you a bit more detail on the support actions, how much money is available to join for each, and what kinds of skills you would need to apply. And also we'll give you an overview of the application process. So I think there's a link in the chat that you can click to follow and register for that if it's of interest to you. And with that quick run through, I think I will hand back to Sarah to wrap up. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining today. And I will leave Sarah for the wrap up and closure.
Thanks a lot, Joy, and thanks, Dragos. Thanks you all for joining such an intense session. I think we have all learned a lot. So my invite is for you all to stay tuned because FAIR Impact has still a lot to offer. As Joy mentioned, the open calls, but other events are upcoming. And so register to the newsletter if you haven't. We're gonna have our final event in February in the Netherlands, so you are all welcome to come and join us there, but much more is coming in between. As I mentioned at the beginning, the slides and the recordings of these events will be published on the event page, so you will get notified about that. So I thanks once more our speakers, Dragos for moderating the event, Brandusha, Vlad, Sonia, Alina, Joy, and I think I mentioned them all. No, and Daniel, sorry, Daniel who left already. Thanks a lot and see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.